Hey everyone, it's Thomas Wooden Railway and welcome to a Thomas Wooden Railway discussion on Devious Diesel. For those who don't know, these Thomas Wooden Railway discussions are my little versions of reviews, but I call them discussions because I like you guys to participate in the comments below, so feel free to leave your comments, your thoughts, your problems, anything you want in the comments below, and we can continue talking about Devious Diesel even after the video is over. So, Diesel is a very important character in Thomas and Friends. He appeared all the way back in the Railway series, he appeared in the TV series, and he's got a bunch of merchandise to his credit. Now, the Diesel you're looking at right here is technically not the very first version of Diesel that was produced. Diesel was made around 1993, 1994 by Learning Curve, but really the only major difference that model has, that this Diesel does not have, it had flat magnets back in the early to mid 1990s. This version of Diesel is the one that I had as a kid. It's dated 2001, and as you can tell, it has a few scrapes and scratches here and there, a little bit of edge wear, but for the most part, looks pretty good, and this is also the Diesel I used in my series for a really long time. A lot of the engines that I got as a kid, memories where I got them, it's always kind of blurry, but I actually do remember the day I went down to the toy store and bought Diesel. It was for some occasion, I can't really remember what it was, but yeah, I always wanted Diesel because as a kid I was trying to reenact, episodes and stories that I knew about, and Diesel was always the perfect bad guy. I wouldn't be surprised, I really can't remember if I got Diesel 10 before Diesel, but that might have been the case. This Diesel is labeled dated 2001 underneath, and I'm going to keep this one off to the side. I just wanted to show it off because it is the one from my personal collection. I'm going to bring in another Diesel here that's pretty much spotless. I probably bought this new in box. It's also dated 2001, and it's the exact same version of Diesel you just looked at, but it's pristine and clean looking and doesn't have any scrapes or scratches. So Diesel here is a very simple character. He doesn't have any crazy designs going on, and he has minimal detailing. We see some vents on the side here, the door to his cab, a ladder as well. The face is pretty spot on. That looks like a Diesel face for me. It doesn't look particularly devious. It just kind of looks like he's watching something from a distance. It doesn't really look like he's plotting either. However, as this video progresses, hopefully I will show you guys some Diesels where maybe you'll think, yeah, he's up to something. So yeah, this Diesel is also dated 2001, and it has this little ledge on the back here. I guess the official / unofficial name for this is a widow's peak. Basically, it was just like a styling tool they did back then, and I'll bring in my old one. It has that one as well. And then I'd say around the mid 2000s they started to get rid of this, but I know I'll get a question about that. So Diesel here is pretty nice. He's not super flashy or anything. He's got this black color, white detailing. That's pretty much it. And I don't know, maybe you can think of some symbolism here, but maybe since Diesel is an evil character, maybe that's why he's black. I also think it's just to represent how unfinished he is, and when he was introduced into the Railway series, he wasn't painted any special colors or anything like that. So this is basically the first version of Diesel we're going to take a look at. Let me bring in the second version. I believe it is dated 2005. The wheels won't tell me anything because they're all dated 2003, but the packaging that this came in, I want to say, was 2005 or 2006. This was also made by Learning Curve, and it was just an updated version of Diesel. Very interesting, though, it was not released as like a special edition or a re-release. It was just, they had that version for a while, and then it just came time to upgrade them, I guess. So Diesel's face is a little bit different. This one, I think, is a little bit more devious. This one, I think he's watching something unfold. This one, Diesel's like, no, like, I want into whatever's happening over there. I will say for the faces we're going to look at, for the most part, they really do represent the era that they're from. This is from the early model era, and 2004, 2005 would be what, season 7, season 8? When the models started to get a little bit, I wouldn't say upgraded, but like the scenery changed a lot in the episodes, and you can definitely tell, I don't know, it has a much cleaner feeling, a much crisper look. But I grew up with the early Thomas stuff, so I really like the dirty, unfinished, the sets that were thrown together at the last minute, it seems like, from the early seasons of the TV series. So I don't really know why Diesel got an upgrade other than, you know, they changed the face masks in the model series and they wanted the merchandise to reflect that. The big difference Diesel has here, up front he has a red buffer beam. That's something we don't see on this one back here. And what you'll notice throughout this, this evolution of Diesels as we continue on, watch this red buffer beam. It will disappear and it will reappear and it will disappear, and it's kind of an interesting running, I wouldn't call it a running gag, but it's just like a running detail that always seems to change. On our 2005 Diesel, we have a lot more detailing along the side here. This is pretty minimalistic, it's just the major stuff. The ladders decreased in size, the vents have decreased, but there's more detailing inside of them. No detailing on the back whatsoever. Same thing along the side here. I'll give you guys one last look at the faces. I grew up with this face, I'm kind of partial to it, but this is not a bad face either. So, that's version 2 of Diesel that was actually sold for a decent amount of time. I want to say, let's call, if we say this was released in 2005, it was sold until about, you know, 2010 or so. Our third version of Diesel is the one that I currently use in my Thomas Wooden Railway series. I really like this Diesel because it's got an updated face, but as you're going to see in just a little bit, the expression on Diesel's face is going to change. So we have a red buffer beam, and I'll bring in the previous Diesel in a second here, but right off the bat, the detailing looks pretty similar. You know, it's not as big or as, I don't know what you would call it, maybe unfinished as this type of Diesel. So we still have these smaller details. Nothing on the back. I actually don't know off the top of the head if Diesel ever has anything on his back there. But I really like this version of Diesel. This Diesel was released around 2011 in conjunction with Day of the Diesels. And this is also the first Diesel that was released after the CGI makeover. So once again, we have a new expression for Diesel. I don't like this version of Diesel in the TV series. He's really whiny and just, you know, starting to get very uncharacteristically like the Diesel that we know today, unfortunately. But I do like this face. It's not really like a cunning face or like a plotting face. It's just like he's unhappy. And if that's one thing about Diesel, he's just never happy. He's just really hard to get along with. So we got the 2005 one on the left, got the we'll call it 2011 one on the right. Through here, the detailing looks the same, a little bit of a change right there, but overall, very, very similar. Extremely similar, actually. We even have the detailing on the top there, which I forgot to point out when we were looking at these two here. So yes, there is some detailing on the top, nothing on the back. And around the side here, I'll give you guys one more comparison. So we can call this is technically a learning curve Diesel because it was released in 2011. But we're starting to get into, you know, the end of Learning Curve's tenure as maker of the Thomas Wooden Railway line. Tomy came along. They only held the rights for the merchandise for a year before selling them to Fisher-Price and Mattel, and this is what we got. From the side here, Diesel looks perfectly fine, you know, pretty much the same amount of detailing here and there. We got the ladder, we got the stuff up top, the cab area. It's when you turn it this way that Diesel suddenly looks very, very different. He is now sporting a smiling expression, and he's a little bit more rounder for some reason. The face also takes up more of this front area, but he's still got that red buffer beam, although it is a bit of a different color. So we're going to call this 2013 Diesel, aka Fisher-Price Mattel Diesel. When these Fisher-Price Mattel engines were released, they went through a few changes. One of them, there's something to do with the axles, and then on bogie engines, the underside here is plastic. But then also the engines have much more curved edges. The thinking there is, I don't know, maybe some kids were injuring themselves playing with the toys. I don't know. It was probably just to cut costs somewhere along the line. So you'll notice that Diesel does have a much more round appearance. We'll bring in 2011 Diesel. Remember, there's only 2 years between these two. And the major detailing on the side here that gets me is the sudden inclusion of a box here. I don't know enough about the actual bases of these Diesels to tell you, oh, this is what this is and this is what that is. I'm just like, ooh, there's now a box there. Interesting, we now have a line running down the center. I'm not sure off the top of my head if these are supposed to represent, I know the one on the side here I think is supposed to be like a handrail. And I really can't picture off the top of my head if these are supposed to be, you know, sticking above Diesel in real life, or if it's just the way his paint flows or something like that. But anyway, just minor detailing. I would say this 2011 Learning Curve 1 was definitely, they took heavy inspiration from it. The ladder's a little bit different, and I will say, I don't know. Now that I move it back and forth, I was going to say the lines on this Diesel were a little bit brighter, but I think it's just where they're sitting in relation to the lights up here. However, let's bring in the faces. All of a sudden, Diesel has been taking some happy pills. He's very cheerful, and this Diesel is mad that this Diesel is somehow happy. Let me bring in this Diesel. You'll definitely see the buffer beam change there. So I'd say this is a bright red. This is more of a darker red, and I think that's pretty obvious right there. So we are just moving right along. Diesel's a pretty important character in Thomas and Friends, so it's not surprising that he has a bunch of different models. But what we're going to encounter here is a plethora of different models in a very short period of time. This Diesel right here was also made by Fisher-Price and Mattel. It was released in 2016-2017. It was the last hurrah of fully painted wood engines before we actually got Thomas and Friends wood. The big change here, the face is pretty much the same. I think the eyes are a little bit weird, and this was a common problem with all of the 2017, I guess you can call it 2017, last releases of classic Thomas Wooden Railway. It's like they shrunk the faces down, but they forgot to adjust the pupil size and the eye size, and so we get all of these engines with really weird faces. Diesel's, in comparison to his old model back there, actually isn't too bad. I still don't like the face, and his eyes are a tiny bit weird, but considering the problems that some other engines faced in 2017, yeah, he looks very similar. The main difference with this Diesel is all of a sudden that red buffer beam is gone. So we started out with no red buffer beam way back here, then we got the red buffer beam, and as you're going to see, it kind of returns in a way. But the detailing here pretty similar, nothing on the back. This has more of a raw, unfinished texture to it. Maybe you guys can see in the light there's no like gloss applied. One thing I really like about this version of Diesel, look how shiny it is. I really like that. I mean, it's so shiny that I can, like, you know, use my thumb to smudge the gloss on there, and you can actually see where my thumb used to be. That was actually something that Learning Curve did really well towards the end of their ownership of the line. One thing you might notice, it's kind of hard to see, but at the end here, it suddenly curves down. Just kind of a little fun fact, you can kind of see where it starts to curve. We don't have that on this old version of Diesel. So this was sold from 2013 to about 2016 or so. And then we got 2017 Diesel over here. And let me bring in the faces. So if I had to choose a face, I would go for this size of face. As you can see, this Diesel's face is a lot bigger. I would go for this size of face, but the actual face from this Diesel. If I was only stuck with these two, I mean, I would much rather have a grumpy face, but yeah, Diesel's face almost comes off the top of his front here, and that's a little bit weird. But on the side detailing, it looks pretty similar. We still have that line running down, which is interesting, and yeah. So, let's review. From the classic Thomas Wooden Railway era, we have roughly 1994, 1995, mid-90s. 10 years later, we got this. 5 years later, we got this. 3 years later, we got this. And roughly 3 to 4 years later, we got this. So Diesel is receiving some fairly consistent upgrades. Well, upgrades or downgrades, whatever you want to call them. Yep, this is a real version of Diesel. It's from the wood line, and you guys know I already don't like this. I mean, whoever approved this idea probably doesn't have a job anymore, let's be honest, because this did not work out well. But basically, it's unpainted Diesel, where all of that small detailing, like where the white used to be, it's just like we cut out the main body and we're going to let the exposed wood underneath do the rest of the detailing for us. It's not the best toy for kids out there. I cannot understand, I cannot explain how in the world this succeeded. and I don't think it really succeeded, but it was on store shelves for way longer than it should have been. We still have that classic happy face diesel for some reason, although you'll notice here, and it's very hard to tell because this diesel is not painted, we got some buffer action going on here. That's something we have not seen this entire time. So the faces, wow, they're pretty much identical. Man, I wouldn't be surprised if they use the same mold or something like that. That is really, really similar. I don't think you're going to get closer than that. So maybe that was one of the things they were testing out with these 2017 releases. They were getting ready to switch over to wood here. They were trying to figure out what they were going to do and what they could get away with. Detailing wise, it's hard to tell because we're looking at a brown engine over here and a black engine over here. The lines are, yeah, they're still up here. You just have to see wherever white is over here, it's going to be brown over here. And yeah, no more detailing. I mean, that is just a horrible look at the wood engines from this angle. That is just awful. But yeah, honestly, we still got, I will point out, still curves here. Still curves at the bottom. So yeah, they definitely introduced this. And what I'm going to do when I bring in the fully painted wood diesel in just a moment, I'm actually going to compare, obviously compare here and here, but compare that to that, because these two, if this was kind of the starting point for this, and then the only major difference here is that this diesel was painted and this one wasn't, well then what exactly is going on with the diesel that I have over to the side here? So yeah, this unfortunately happened. I can't defend it. I won't defend it because I don't like it, but yeah, it's something we had to live with for, fortunately, a very short period of time. However, we still had to live with it. Let's bring in this version of Thomas Wood Diesel. That's the thing, it still is wood, but it's been fully painted. So, a step in the right direction, and actually considering all of the other wood versions of engines out there, wood diesel is not that bad, because I'm going to compare this to this, and I don't think there's going to be too many differences, honestly. Compared to some of the other wood engines out there, a lot more other engines have suffered than diesel here. He kind of took a downturn, but maybe on his way back up, honestly. So let me bring in wood diesel. So what we should be looking at the exact same engine, but one of them's painted and one of them's not. You can definitely see the buffer action going on here. It's much easier to see than on this wood version. On the side here, I mean, I really, what I think they did is when they decided to bring the paint in, they didn't make any major changes. They were literally just like, all right, we're going to paint them now. And whatever detailing they had left in there stayed. I mean, it's along the side here. I mean, they didn't even bother to paint the corners or anything. I mean, it's just lazy. So yeah, I guess it's official now that we've made our way to the end here. No diesel has ever had any detailing on the backside there. That's kind of interesting. Around, I guess these are supposed to be nails. I don't really know their purpose as of the making of this video. But yeah, it's kind of interesting how the wood one doesn't. Some wood items do have the nails in the bottom, but I think the majority of the painted wood products have them as well. So let me bring in this version of diesel. So we're looking at, actually we're still looking at the same company, I should say that, but we're looking at technically two different ranges. The first thing you're going to notice is that while the details have been drawn in white for a very, very long time, maybe not exactly white, but it's definitely on the lighter side of gray, I would argue the detailing over here is definitely gray. I don't know how accurate that is. I'm used to seeing this in white, so I prefer the white. Oh boy, that's really similar too. In my opinion, when I take a look at these engines, I think this diesel has a much happier face. Maybe it's just the angles he's at. His face seems shiny too. But gosh, that is still a really uncomfortable face to look at. Detailing wise, this, I don't know what we want to call it. That rectangle there is now that. The vents, I don't know. I'm not looking at like a render of the characters or anything right now, so I don't know how accurate this is, but yeah, there's actually a fair amount of, it looks like a lot of the fine detailing has been kind of reversed, and now we're just going back to more stock standard stuff. Like, yeah, that's a rectangle instead of, oh, we got some vents going on here. It's like, nah, it's, I don't know what you would call that. So I did want to make that comparison because I do think, you know, the middle thing, yeah, it fits in right there, but these should technically be the same because you know? I mean, the way this curves and everything, this was definitely like a prototype working design for unpainted wood, and then little did they know, when unpainted wood didn't work out, they were going to bring it back. And the one thing that the wood engines do right is they do have painted buffers. Most of them do. It's so funny we don't get that detailing on the back though. So you guys may think that we're coming to the end of this video. Well, actually not. There is another version of Diesel out there. He wasn't made by Learning Curve or Fisher-Price or Mattel. He was made by Brio. I don't know a whole lot about Brio's involvement in the Thomas Wooden Railway line. It was definitely a direct competitor to Learning Curve's version, but from what I can, the research that I've done and what I can understand is that Brio started making these toys about the mid to late 90s, I would say maybe 96, 97, and ran it for a couple of years, and they did get around to making the Thomas and the Magic Railroad characters, which was 2000, but after that, it just kind of dissolved, and I don't know if Brio wasn't making any money, or if Learning Curve came in and got like the exclusive rights to make wooden toy trains for Thomas, or what the deal was. So I wouldn't call it an off-brand toy, because it is a licensed product from Brio, and Brio is a very reputable company. But I want to bring in, it's this Diesel over here. I'm going to bring in the one from my childhood, however. So let's take a look at these. I don't have too many Brio Thomas items because they're pretty hard to find in the United States. This is just a theory. I don't have any evidence to back it up, but considering Brio is more interested in working overseas compared to the US, I want to say most of these were sold in like the UK or somewhere else. I don't think too many of them made it to the United States, and I definitely don't remember seeing Brio Thomas Wooden Railway items in stores. This Brio Diesel, however, looks really, really nice. We got the same amount of detailing. Actually, I'd say more detail, because at the time when these were released, these were the direct competitors to each other. It's kind of futile for me to try to compare this or that. It'd be interesting, but these are the direct competitors. So imagine a toy store is selling both Learning Curve Diesel and Brio Diesel. I think Brio Diesel has the advantage on the detailing here. A lot of this detailing gets refined later on, but at this point, we're talking mid-90s here, the clickety-clack era. The detailing on Brio Diesel is much better. We also have kind of a weird gap where the ladder is. I don't know why that is. Oh, it's because this looks like, I wouldn't call it a separate piece, but there's an indent in the wood block there, so it's hard to get the paint in there. Well, Brio Diesel doesn't have that problem. And up top here, wow, this was a precursor to what we would see later on. Some detailing on the top. Face-wise, I'll tell you what, both faces are really good. I may have to give the advantage to Brio Diesel, however. Not that this face isn't accurate, but when I think of Diesel, just maybe a little bit more of Diesel in my opinion. And of course the main difference between these engines, if it wasn't obvious, Brio is known for these, I wouldn't call them chrome wheels, but they certainly look chrome, and they definitely let you know that it is a Brio product. What I mean by that is on the wheels, I don't know if it's going to focus or not. Which way is it? Brio, you can kind of see the lettering there. Brio is all over the wheels, and then on the back here, there's a sticker. Oh, that's unfortunate. It looks like at one point we may have been able to see the date. Oh, that's unfortunate. At one point, the date was visible on the back of this Diesel Brio, or Brio Diesel, I should say. If it'll focus. Come on. I have no idea why it's not focusing. Anyway, there we go. At one point, we may have been able to see the date on the back here, but as you can tell, it's a licensed product. Copyrighted to Britt Alcroft Thomas Limited. That's 1990 something. I'm guessing mid-90s, maybe 97. But underneath, as was the time here with Diesel, oh no, well this is a 2001 Diesel, that's why. So mid-90s Diesel did not have a name, and the Brio items don't have anything on their wheels. So yeah, I wanted to bring this out because I do think most of the Brio Thomas engines are really, really good. In fact, some of them are definitely superior to Diesel. And I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments below, guys. Do you think Brio Diesel is superior to this version of Diesel? Honestly, what I'm looking at right now, it has more detailing. It's relatively the same size. It gets the shape right. I'd have to say, yeah, why not? Why not give it the advantage? Yeah, I don't see why not. Maybe just from a classic standpoint, maybe I don't like, it'd be kind of weird since we're not used to seeing like learning curve logos splashed all over toys. It's just kind of weird like, oh yeah, this is definitely made by Brio, but that's just how it was back then. So yeah, guys, I'm going to try to fit all of these engines into one shot here at the end. Let me know which diesel is your favorite. I know there's probably going to be, oh man, I'm going to have to scoot back a little bit. I'd love to hear, oh, that's why. We got two versions of the same one, that's why. So let me know which version of diesel is your favorite. I'd love to hear your reasoning behind it, of course. Man, we still don't have enough space. Let's see. Okay, 2013 diesel is going to be our middle point. Yes, there we go. Okay, I know not exactly in the center here, but there we go. The 8 versions, the 8 main versions of diesel over the years, as of the making of this video. Let me know which version of diesel you like best. Personally, I like the majority of these diesels. Basically, if the diesel has a grumpy face, basically if diesel is not smiling, I like it. There's nothing inherently wrong with these 3 versions and Brio diesel over here. It's when Diesel starts to smile, and this is true in all his forms of merchandise for some reason. I don't know if the people making the Thomas toys are scared that kids are not going to like Diesel because he looks grumpy. That was the thing that attracted me to Diesel way back when, because he's not like every other character out there. He looks grumpy because he is a grumpy Diesel. However, I'm guessing, you know, somebody along the line was like, yeah, the kids are going to be scared if Diesel gives them a weird look, so it is what it is. It's, you know, we're unfortunately past the point. I mean, this was several years ago, and I don't think we'll ever see. It will have to be like a special edition grumpy face Diesel, kind of like what Bachman did. But anyway, guys, this has been a very long video. If you've lasted this far, thank you so much. I hope I've done a good job, a decent enough job of showing you guys all the different versions of Diesel. It's so funny how we were kind of trending in one direction and now we may be trending back. I don't know, with the addition of this guy. It's kind of weird, but I wanted to show off all of these different versions you guys saw, and this is a very good picture of how the buffer beams, we didn't have any in the beginning, we got them, and then they kind of disappeared. I'd even call this disappeared on this one, because you can't even tell it's there. But I will stop rambling. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this discussion, and I will see you all on my next video.